Hi guys, this is editorial analysis for September the 20th, 2016. Day before yesterday there was a terrorist attack on our army base at Uri in Jammu and Kashmir. The weapons that these terrorists were carrying, they have markings of Pakistani ordnance factory on them, confirming that it was indeed an act of terror by the state of Pakistan. Today all the editorials are filled with all the newspapers are filled with editorials suggesting what we should do next, what our political and military move should be from here on. Most of them are suggesting that we should diplomatically isolate Pakistan. At the next UNGA meeting at New York, which is about to happen, we should also urge the Western nations to impose sanctions on Pakistan. Some of them are saying that we should seal the border. Some of them are even saying that we should launch covert, unpublicized attacks on Fedayeen camps and Pakistani army camps on the Pakistani side of the border. Some are saying that it is a fault of our intelligence. This should not have happened in the first place. There have been fund cuttings even for paramilitary forces, and our surveillance equipment is very, very old, and our intelligence technology has not been upgraded. So these are some of the issues that need to be looked into. But as civil service aspirants, I think all these opinions are not gonna matter. Next year when we write mains, what is going to matter is what our Prime Minister said and the events that unfold from there on. So I'm sure he'll give a very befitting reply, and let's see how all this unfolds from now on. So let's go to the first editorial today. It says that only 27% of villages in India have a bank within a 5-kilometer radius, and the number of those without basic bank account is still huge. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana pushed banking accessibility to 24 crore more people, but Indian Express, the newspaper, in a recent investigation has found out that bank officials put just rupee 1 in these accounts just to keep them alive. The government must look for last mile connectivity and universal bank account, meaningful financial and qualitative financial inclusion. So the author of this article, he suggests some very holistic measures. I'm just going to read them out for you. Firstly, he says that in Bangladesh, millions of people have been brought into formal banking system through an entity called bKash Limited. B in small letter, K in capital letter, ASH in small letters. bKash Limited is a mobile-based financial services promoted by an NGO, BRAC, BRAC, all in capital letters. It uses telecom services to enable ordinary people to send and receive funds, including international remittances, through their own mobile phones and personal identification number protected accounts. India could also do something like this by including NGOs and private players, so that private players could provide us with skill set, organizational and management capabilities. In this regard, India has already launched the Unified Payment Interface UPI, which powers multiple bank accounts in a single mobile app and offers banking features. India has also launched the Bharat Bill Payments, which offers multiple modes of paying bills. For both of them, private banks have come forward more in number. The private banks have signed up for these programs more in numbers as compared to public sector banks. Another measure that he suggests, that we have banking correspondents in India who help bring people from hinterland into banking fold, but these banking correspondents do not get enough incentives, even though they provide accident and life insurance and micro pension schemes services like these in addition to basic banking services. RBI has also restricted them to serving only one bank. So this is something that we need to address, that how we can increase their incentives. Thirdly, that payment banks should also be allowed to offer micro pension and insurance schemes in addition to India Post. So these are three main recommendations that this particular author gives. Now let's move on to the second editorial. It says that the 17th NAM Summit, Non-Alignment Movement Summit, was recently held at Margarita Island in Venezuela. Now, experts have long been saying that non-alignment movement in our present international political context, it is losing its meaning. And why this is so? What are some of the indicators through which we find out that NAM is losing its meaning for us? First of all, that our Prime Minister did not go to attend this summit. It was attended by our Vice President Hamid Ansari. Secondly, NAM has little to do with NDA's ideology. You know, NDA is more inclined towards US and its investments in our country. Anyways, so they don't care about NAM, which was basically the brainchild of Nehru. Thirdly, even if our Prime Minister did go anyway to NAM, all the media hype would have been on his meeting with the Prime Minister of Pakistan and not the agenda of NAM itself. And the same thing happened in 2006 Havana Summit, 2009 Sharm el Sheikh, and 2012 Tehran Summit. So these are some of the indicators why NAM is losing its meaning for India, even though for the other NAM members it might still be useful to some extent, because it is one of their major platforms to talk about their issues. Now let's move on to the third editorial. It says Indian healthcare is understaffed. WHO, World Health Organization, it has recommended one doctor per 1000 people, but India has one doctor for every 2000 people. So Niti Aayog has proposed a National Medical Commission which draws on recommendations of the Ranjit Roy Chaudhary Committee and the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health. So what are some of the features of this NMC, National Medical Commission? It says that instead of the current input obsessed regulatory approach that breeds corruption, NMC focuses on outcomes. It recommends a system of exit examinations and periodic renewal and re-evaluation of medical licenses to ensure that doctors keep up with medical research. NMC will be an oversight body supported by an advisory council comprising state and union territory representatives who must be senior faculty members in a medical institution. It recommends doing away with fees regulation and it permits for-profit medical colleges. The logic behind is that fees will come down when we license new colleges. Of course, more colleges, more seats, fees will come down. It also recommends that all well-functioning hospitals should be encouraged to become teaching hospitals. So this is something on the health sector. I think it's very important. Now let's move on to the fourth editorial, the next editorial. This was in a different newspaper, but I think it can be seen in addition to the first editorial that I read today, that was on banking reforms and financial inclusion. It just adds a couple of more recommendations for financial inclusion. It says that usually banks don't want to loan to small borrowers due to fear of building on NPAs, that is non-performing assets. But now we see that big industrial borrowers are also willful defaulters. You know the whole Vijay Mallya case. So it says that we should not discriminate against small borrowers. We must loan to them, and we can use new technologies and big data to assess their credit worthiness without much physical infrastructure and manpower. So of course there is always this fear that they might not be able to pay back and they might not be able to produce a collateral for the loans that they are taking. But nowadays, with so much of information available, it is easier to check on someone's credit worthiness if the bank has to advance a loan to that person. So this is something that our banking system can accept. Secondly, said the second recommendation that this editorial gives is that banks should design their products keeping in mind their target audience.